The final ending to One Last Time. Part 1 of the story down below in the description and comments. My lawyer has petitioned the court to have her ruled incompetent, but hers of course is fighting this, so we have more delays. At least if ruled incompetent, the state would assign a guardian and get the divorce done. Well, after the vital home inspection, her lawyer went quiet for a couple of weeks. She had a laundry list of problems with the home which I had already told my lawyer to be prepared for. When we owned a duplex, she used to always accuse tenants of all sorts of damage and nonsense to hold the security deposits, and it was always silly small stuff no one really cared about, so I figured she would pull the same with our home. Her lawyer's response was almost comical. She will finally agree to take the home at the price we have agreed upon for months. However, she wants me to spend about $10,000 to finish the kitchen remodel we were in the middle of when she left. If I do that, she will not sue me for the mystery damage to the home. It was just a joke, like my entire divorce has been. The home value was based on what the house looked like the day she left. All the appraisals, everything has been based on this. Not after I remodel. I asked them if they wanted me to put a roof on it also, since I am supposed to be this generous. The judge would never order this. Her lawyer knows this. I have a buyer who will pay our agreed upon price. I would keep the house for the agreed upon price, and for months Team STBX agreed. Now once it's actually time to sign the paperwork, she won't, and finds yet another reason to make a mess out of something. You really think her lawyer at some point would just get sick of playing games on junk he can never win and get her to finish? Well, she finally signed the actual legal paperwork to take possession of the home. Her attorney is still jerking around on the kitchen remodel end of it. We had a hearing last week for the contempt charges they brought against me, which of course the day before her lawyer dropped those charges. My lawyer attended the hearing, which was changed from an order to show cause to a scheduling hearing for our final hearing date. Her lawyer made an issue out of the kitchen and all the other personal property which he has been wanting to make issues out of for over a year now. I'm still lost on just what he is fighting for on the property end. I'm not fighting for the washing machine that broke last June. I could care less about all her junk which she already took out of the house, and what is left here is just worthless. She is making up items that she claims I have, but they don't exist, so how much is fantasy worth? Then her lawyer starts up about secret videos that I have and her fear that I will start putting them on the internet to embarrass her. Guess her life hasn't become embarrassing enough already. Anyway, since we have never even owned a video camera, it makes it hard to take videos. The rumor mill has her ex-boyfriend has some. I did mention that I could ask for copies from him if they would like. I am sure she would like to relive the good times of a fair land. Like everything in my fiasco called divorce, at the end of the hearing we should have gotten our final hearing date scheduled. Instead, the brilliant judge who can't make decisions decided to schedule yet another pretrial conference for next month so he can make suggestions on how we should divide the personal property. After 19 months he wants to make suggestions of dividing junk. Since everyone, including her lawyer, all agree that you can't reason with her, what does this judge think he will accomplish with his suggestions? Just more waste of time nonsense. So, with another month before a useless hearing, I figure the earliest that I can get a final hearing date will be January now. So glad we have this speedy system. I did make a complaint with the State Bar Association about her lawyer. They said it would take a couple months to do an investigation, and that in the world of divorce lawyers have a great deal of latitude on handing cases. Who knows if it will go anywhere? So, at the end of the month the house is hers. When she first left, she didn't want the place. Last November she did. I agreed, then she changed her mind. In May she wanted it again. End of May we agreed on price, and it's taken this long just to get her to sign the paperwork. I am in the home stretch now of moving out. My brother came into town to help me move the big items, and I will pretty much be in my new place. My STBX takes legal possession next week. I agreed to an earlier date than the end of the month to just get it over with and give her less time to have her lawyer play silly games which they love to do. I have been having a contractor friend of mine rehabbing the new home for about the last 6 weeks with lots of little projects that needed to be done. Home is smaller than my old home, but I gained much more acreage which the dogs enjoy. Since I wasn't living in the house yet, it just made sense to get everything ready, and the updating I want it done now. While it made fiscal sense to leave this house after 16 years in it, this have been more emotional for me than I thought it would. I have been stuck on the trip down memory lane more than anything. I didn't think after all this time and this mess that the emotions would play that much, but they have. I do find it ironic that after all the piles of junk she had moved out of this place, me packing all of her remaining items, and now me packing my items, that the house would look empty, but she still has so much stuff in this place you can't even tell I have packed and moved the bulk of mine out. So, one day of moving big items and a couple carloads of little stuff, then me and the dogs are officially moved. I hope that by moving the date up to get out of here quicker helps with the emotions. Being stuck in the limbo of this home and the shrine to divorce it has worn on me at times. I somehow don't think that after all this, once she gets back into the home, she will enjoy having it nearly as much as she thinks. I know the neighbors are not too pleased she is going to be back. We had our personal property hearing today so we could listen to the judge's suggestions. Like everything, my STBX has made issues out of everything and was now demanding that she get my taxidermy of all things. She wants to fight me for a 14-year-old deer mount, and a judge is listening to this nonsense. So, in the judge's infinite wisdom, he orders that we must auction everything we own, which even both lawyers agree was the dumbest decision he could make. I literally have to have as part of this auction a fish in my office at work, but since the tank is my boss's, people need to bring a bucket along to catch the fish. I kid you not, I have the dumbest judge in the world, I think. She had a laundry list of things wrong with the house that she wanted to receive compensation for, but the judge tossed all that out, so I guess the house is finally done. Like most things with her, now that she has her prize, she isn't happy with it. She actually attended this hearing, and it was the first time I have seen her since May 13th. She did not look good and very uncharacteristic of her. She was very pale. She had gained weight. She wore no makeup at all, dressed in very baggy, oversized clothes. She never once looked at me as far as I could tell, and spent most of the hearing staring at the wall. She never uttered a single word, just very robotic. I thought I would have an emotional day having not seen her in so long, but I didn't have any real emotion at all. I thought I would feel something, even if it was just anger for the foolishness this divorce has become, but really nothing. Before the hearing officially started, her lawyer was very quick to point out to us, he believes she is completely crazy at this point. Her therapist tried pulling the letter game to judge once again with all sorts of weirdness in it, which her lawyer was able to get stopped before the judge saw it. All we need is that issue again to delay this further. My lawyer said he saw part of the letter and it talked about the depressed state of mind my STBX is currently living in, etc. After that, all he said was from what he saw, she is still living in the world of delusion. I got a final hearing date again. This time it's way out at the end of February. I have at least 4 more months of this. I did find it poetic that the date of the final is the 2-year anniversary of her leaving. I told the judge today to just tell me a number and my boss would write a check and get this over with. Both lawyers thought a great idea. Bonehead judge says no, let's just auction it all. Lawyers just shook head in disbelief. He finally made one decision in divorce, and it's this silly. State is still investigating her lawyer. I think that is why he was willing to try and deal more today than in past. In the beginning I felt it was better to not to date until the divorce was final. I never in my wildest dreams, almost 2 years later, stuck in this mess yet. Would I like to date and have some fun? Yes. I have gone out a couple of times. Do I want a serious relationship? No idea. I have been burned pretty bad by this experience. My STBX was the only woman I ever seriously dated. The part that truly burns me up is because she is contesting every piece of property the judge ordered everything sold, even premarital or exempt items. Why in the world do I have to bid on an old duck decoy that came from my great-grandfather when I was a kid? Things like this, money-wise, they aren't worth a great deal, it's just the principle of it. I just shouldn't have to buy my own stuff or have her bid me up to keep what legally should be exempt. When I asked the judge this very question, he told me he would decide after the auction what was premarital or exempt, to which again both lawyers just shook their heads. It is a little late at that point now, isn't it? When I question the judge more, I get the all too familiar I'm the judge and can do whatever I want attitude. Now that this judge has actually made one decision finally in this divorce action, I imagine I could appeal his ruling, but that of course would mean yet another attorney bill. Once you get stuck in this system, you just can't get out of it. I took very little out of the house that was marital property. I didn't care about that junk, and honestly most of it I was happy to leave behind. Yet she just has to find a reason to fight about nonsense. I have thought about just outbidding her too on everything and basically leaving her with an empty house. Most of the junk is burnable and I could hear my new house with it in my wood stove. We just shouldn't have to play this childish game to begin with. She bids me up, I bid her up. I should let her win my duck mounts, then once she takes possession of them have her arrested, because once she has them, she is in violation of federal law. You can't sell, barter or transfer ownership of any wild game, mounts or parts of migratory birds. If the value is high enough it becomes a felony. I have received a bid on the fish. I will get my legal team on it immediately and will ask the judge to convene a special hearing for clarification about the bucket issue. This judge is probably dumb enough to do it. I received a call today from an insurance adjuster. Apparently my STBX wanted to make a claim on our homeowner's policy for a new roof on the house that she took possession last month. I asked him what kind of a claim and he said hail damage. I asked him when we had a hailstorm because I don't remember any. He said he was calling me with the same question because we haven't had a hailstorm in several years. He then tells me he went to the home to inspect whatever damage is there and the old roof had already been torn off the house. Any possible evidence of damage has now been hauled off to a landfill. The insurance is denying the claim, which makes sense, and I do agree no such claim should have ever been made. But why in the world would she have the roof torn off, then try to get insurance money? It will cost around $8 to $10K for a new roof on that house. She is crying poor all over town. She owes her lawyer a bunch of cash. The kitchen remodel needs to be completed and she can't afford that either. Now let's put a new roof on. She is having problems just getting the house refinanced with what we owed on the home, let alone these additional costs. It makes no sense, and really in the world of divorce you can't spend cash like this. She is just adding another problem into this mess. I told the adjuster good luck when he tells her the roof isn't covered, and he really should do it over the phone because in person won't go well for him. I guess this is my punishment for a quiet week last week. Yesterday it's insurance adjusters with fantasy hail damage. Today it's her lawyer saying I neglected the roof, thus wrecking it, creating a mold issue in the attic, and somehow it's also wrecked the deck even though no part of the deck has a roof. I guess for all these years living there I should have gone and toweled off the roof after each rain and snow so it wasn't neglected. I did ask them to try and follow one storyline of nonsense because it just confuses the viewers at home, the soap opera world she has created. Why her lawyer felt it necessary to waste his time and our money chasing this now is beyond me. It's all good considering I was willing to keep the house for the agreed upon price and I had a buyer willing to buy it at that price. She had plenty of time to hire a building inspector to look the home over prior to accepting it or even saying she wanted it. The woman just can't live without the drama. She got what she wanted and she isn't happy she got it. I told the clowns this would happen, but everybody else knew better. I'm so sick of hearing my lawyer say I guess you are right. Update. We had a motion hearing yesterday to select the referee, auctioneer, mediator, or whatever is the term today as it seemingly changes from one to the next. The judge made a choice and that took about 30 seconds. I am so glad my attorney had to drive 2 hours for that decision. This time my STBX just stared at the desk. The judge ordered her to take her sunglasses off and that was the only time she ever moved. I fully expected to have a grand performance from her attorney regarding the roof and all the other mystery damage to the house. Instead, the performance surrounded the fish tank in my office at work. He rambled for a half hour about how we had to drag everybody to my office and do the auction there and had a whole wonderful imaginative story about the value of it. This time it's a 300-gallon tank. Last time it was 550, and for the folks keep track at home it's 150 gallons and it's not even my water tank. It's my boss's water tank. So, in the last 2 weeks we have bounced from fights over personal property. What is marital? Non-marital. Bad roofs and damage to a house in an ever-changing story of fantasy. And we have a court hearing and they talk about a fish tank. I sarcastically told my lawyer gosh over a year ago that the fish would be the key to the entire divorce. I really did mean it as a joke, yet here we are debating that in court and this idiot judge is even listening to this. Drove me nuts. The judge suggested that we just take a picture of the water tank and her lawyer said that wasn't good enough. We had to see it. I spoke up and reminded everyone yet again, I don't own it. It's not included in prop division and the judge to me to not talk. After all this nonsense the judge then comes up with let the auctioneer make the decision. This whole thing is like the hamster in the wheel. It just goes round and never gets anywhere. I will admit the fish angle is an interesting tactic and no one expected it, so I give him an A for being creative, but just how dumb does this have to get? Why not make the performance on something that at least has some value ... or even belongs to me? He swore out a deposition over a year ago stating the water tank was his property. His attorney today sent a letter to judge refreshing his memory on this point and informing them that if they attempt to enter his property chasing this nonsense, he will take every legal action in his power to stop the unlawful sale of his property. And now today she has tried to get money out of my checking account. She really has too much free time. She was on meds for several years while we were together. She decided to quit taking them about 2 months before she left. No idea if she ever started taking it again or if she has new ones. She needs a rubber room and keep away from sharp objects. I have a date tomorrow actually. I wish she would finally start a new life since she wanted this so bad and just leave me out of it. Today the lunatic filed for another false RO. She had 6 pages worth of rantings in the statement ranging from stalking to her claims that she has seen me drive by the house with my friend Joe to see what is going on. I don't have a friend named Joe. I haven't driven past the house. She claimed I am hurting and manipulating her through my attorney. I am supposedly stealing her mail, and apparently I have been doing this since the beginning, as she said I was stealing her parents' mail when she was living there as well as other apartments she had. I never knew she was living with her parents or half the apartments she supposedly had. Her parents live about 45 minutes away in a different county. I'm driving around that much to check the mail. For what? A bill from her lawyer. She is scared because I am fighting her every step of the way in the divorce and she feels threatened by this. Funny, I keep begging for a court date and her lawyer files for delays. Every single item in this RO is fantasy, and got weirder the more she wrote. She fears I will snap. I am trying to kill her also, which of course was the last paragraph, along with her begging for help and rantings about how I kept her as a sex slave and maid. The help she needs is a rubber room and straitjacket. They of course gave her the temp order because we have to humor the crazy. So more wasted time and money defending myself from her nonsense, and this will no doubt create yet another delay in the divorce that will never end. It sure is a good thing she wanted this divorce and all I wanted to do was cut a deal and get it done. I do wish she would get over this obsession and fear she is going on. She just won't let go and I got no way to get rid of her. Got word today that her father passed away 2 weeks ago. He was ill with Alzheimer's for 3 years. She was very close to her father and the only family member I liked really. My lawyer figures that this will push her farther down into her depression and craziness, which probably has some factor in the RO she pulled last week. Every brother and sister she have had their marriages wrecked by infidelity. They have all been BS. My STBX is the only WS of the bunch and they all know what she did. They may publicly support her story, but considering how much her family loves to fight to begin with. The emotionally charged situation, I'm sure they expressed the displeasure of her situation. When her grandmother died years ago, the family fought like cats and dogs over all the stuff and did it for months. My STBX actually quit talking to her family for an entire year over wicker patio furniture which was junk. And I wonder why we are fighting over decoys and taxidermy. Update. Had my court hearing today for her latest RO. It was dismissed. My attorney never even had to ask a question. I never got to testify. It never got that far. The judge asked her several questions and the answers got weirder and sillier with each one. When asked how I was stalking her, she said saw what she thinks was my car at a park and ride parking lot she drove past to her parents' house, so I must be following her. When the judge asked about me driving by the house, the story changed to, she saw someone on a motorcycle drive by the house and it must have been one of my friends reporting on her activity. When the judge asked about me stealing the mail, my STBX said she found a letter in the mailbox that was unsealed, so I must have taken it and read it and then put it back. My STBX claimed she had to move 6 times because I found out where she lived. The judge asked her for an example of my reign of terror that would cause her to move, and she said that because the cable bill got forwarded to one of her addresses that I did that on purpose. She claimed I was watching her at work, but then in the next sentence stated that I don't know where she works now. The judge asked if I don't know where she works, how can I be stalking her? My STBX then said she saw a car like mine drive by, so it must be me. Then my STBX went on a rant about how I have a bedroom obsession problem for the last 10 years and how that has caused her PTSD, which her first therapist told her, but that person moved away, and how I now forced her to take the house in the divorce and now feels trapped even though she fought to get the house back, and because I found out about the roof being taken off the house I must be driving by checking up on her, and it just got stranger and stranger. This court commissioner is notorious for stretching to keep these orders in place, and she gave my STBX just about every opening she could to find a reason to keep it in force. The domestic violence advocate who my STBX brought along was even sinking and looking away at how lame the entire affair was getting. The judge quit asking questions, flat out told her she could never possibly meet the slightest standards of abuse or harassment, and dismissed. Told my STBX that she should really just focus on getting the divorce done and move on with her life. The judge also dismissed the contempt charges and my request to have my attorney fees covered, which didn't surprise me I guess, but was hoping some kind of real consequence might finally shake my STBX into finishing this mess. So, we had the personal property auction today finally. Yes, boys and girls, it was as big of a joke as you would expect. It was handled by phone, which was against the wishes of the judge. The referee wanted both lawyers too, which again was against the wishes of the judge. I figure between the lawyers and referee etc. we were spending $18 a minute so we could bid on toasters and old coffee makers. Team STBX tried to get a delay yesterday in this, and my attorney for the last couple weeks has been protesting the list she provided because it was incomplete. The auction guy said no to the delay but then gave the easy out and just say not able to bid. Then that item would be left up to the judge. So, we spent a couple hours listening to her saying not able to bid or bidding ridiculous amounts. She tried running me up on just about everything, so I let her win the bulk of it. I guess I have no furniture now because of it, but it was crazy to try and win the bulk of it. Since she was playing the no able to bid game for most of the good stuff, I did the same at the end. Her lawyer became unglued at this point, calling me just about every name in the book. I almost felt bad. Almost. She bid on one piece of taxidermy and it was a token bid, and the rest she stated she didn't want, so I'm lost as to why last month she is demanding all sorts of it and now she didn't. The duck decoys, I got the not able to bid line after the first one was auctioned, so what was the point again? By the end of the auction, she was screaming and crying. Her lawyer was yelling at her to shut up. Yelling at me because I am so cruel. The referee is stating he did the best he could do and it's not his problem any longer, and mine is stating when you bring a crazy person to an auction, what do you expect? Both of these lawyers have been doing this for over 30 years and neither of them have ever actually had to do the auction. Now they can see why, as it was basically a useless exercise. Nothing really got accomplished other than I lost the furniture I took, but she paid way too much for it, and I'm not sure if I really lost it or not because she can't have it until we go to court and the judge rules on it and we never get to court. Then driving back to work afterwards, my best friend calls me up and my STBX went over by his shop and was saying to sue him because he didn't do some work at the house that she expected to be done. He was never actually hired to do any work and was never paid to do any, but she was demanding he do work and kept saying to him that he was paid long ago and he needs to do the work, where she decided that no one can figure out. I guess we didn't fight enough during the auction, so she needed to yell at someone else. I don't know. Makes no sense, just like the rest of my divorce. So, we had a court appearance today to make the waiver of alimony official finally. It was a waste of time really, but this judge now wants everything as official as possible since we are all convinced as soon as the divorce is final. She will appeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork for her lying during deposition, and her lawyer's only response was he was leaving for vacation and won't be back until the day before our final hearing. The judge wanted to review the transcript of deposition. I can't figure her lawyer's response. I realize he isn't putting his full effort in this, but to just respond that he is going on vacation doesn't make sense. After she left and we were walking out, her lawyer told me and my lawyer that as soon as this case is done, he is retiring. Dealing with my lovely bride made his decision easy for him, as he put it. Apparently, the lawnmower and broken TV made her happy because we had no drama or talk about the horrible conditions of items or whatever else her imagination she could come up with. Also, no questions or comments about me not giving her any firearms, which Mr. Brilliant had ordered. Her lawyer seems perfectly content to go to trial based on she says info, and he knows all my info is based in fact and evidence. The man doesn't stand a chance trying to tell a judge a bank account doesn't exist when I have the statements, and the list goes on and on like that. Update. I write to you tonight, a divorced man. Mr. Brilliant finally divorced us today. He didn't even address her reopening alimony claim and went right into his decision. We spent the next hour listening to an incredibly weird rambling on his decisions and case references which were contradicting what he was ordering basically. Both lawyers were just shaking their heads at how his interpretations of law were spewed out. Very little overall made sense. When her lawyer pointed out that many of his rulings would create significant tax consequences, the judge says, well, it's a great deal of work to figure that out, so I didn't bother. Long story short, she owes me money. It should be quite a bit more if he would have used the correct numbers. She had a complete meltdown upon hearing this number. She will almost certainly appeal, and I'm questioning why I shouldn't. The highlight was at the end when the judge asked both lawyers if they thought he did a good job, like he wanted their approval and a pat on the back. Again, they just shook their heads in disbelief. I didn't even make it out of the courthouse before I had cops stopping me, asking me questions based on her rants. My lawyer was right next to me and in shock. I suppose it was in poor taste on my part to laugh when the one put her hand on her gun like I was some sort of criminal. My lovely now ex-bride hasn't let me down, and I've been called by the police twice tonight already. Each time I inform them the judge ruled this or that today, and they all say, "She didn't tell us that." Then they proceed to complain about how my special one has been wasting hours of their time today. It's going to be a fun few days around here. Last week I received the final divorce decree in the mail after a couple of months of trying to get the paperwork accurate. It's still wrong and not what the judge ordered, but every version received from Team Crazy would take out an item, then add something later. My lawyer told me to deduct the monetary differences from his bill, so in essence he was paying for the additions. In other words, he just wants out and doesn't care. I can't blame him on that really, but it's incredible to me how this joke of a legal system works. She now has 30 days to cut me a check, which I'm sure will never happen, and I'll have to take her to court chasing it. Receiving the paperwork admittedly set me back on an emotional level. Most people are thrilled to receive the paperwork, and I view it as a great failure and a monument to 3 years of nightmare. None of it ever had to be this way. I still would have given the nut job the easiest divorce just to get it done way back in the beginning. I should appeal the ruling, as bad and dumb as it was. I have and always will be a guy who gets hung up on the principle of things, and this divorce was handled so badly from the get-go by the idiot judge. I'm so battle-weary. If she just writes the check and goes away, I probably won't. She has been quiet for the last couple of weeks, which has been a relief, but at the same time I wake every day wondering if this is the day she pulls something. I did get a call from the sheriff department 2 nights ago. First thing the cops asks me is there. Really, why in the world would he think she is here? Then he asks me if I have her phone number. This is when I ask him if he is new or if this is a joke. Turns out they were looking to catch her for something stupid. I just started laughing as I found this funny in my warped sense of humor. Told the cop she is probably doing this to save cash for the check she needs to write me. He didn't know what to say at that. Good to see she is still digging her pit deeper. Last time she pulled a similar stunt, it cost me a bunch of cash and several favors to fix. Now I can just laugh at the stupidity. 3 months later, well, as expected, my lovely ex-bride didn't fulfill the terms of the court order as the deadline passed last week. It's too much money to just chalk it up as a learning experience and not chase it. I just dread starting the legal 3-ring circus again. Why can't she just do what the court ordered and get on with her magical new life or whatever is going on in the land of Oz? One more court appearance and I think I qualify for my own parking spot at the courthouse. If I showed up at court with a woman, I'm pretty sure they would be passing out bulletproof vests given my lovely ex-bride's behavior. Mine would have the big bullseye on it. Half a year later, life has been boring in crazy people land. The financial stuff still isn't done, and at this point I've basically given up. Had 2 hearings over the summer and both went as I expected. First hearing, judge gave her an extension and deadline to come up with the funds, which didn't happen. Second hearing, she didn't show up, but her therapist sent a letter to the judge stating Team Crazy was looking for a new lawyer and asking for a delay, so of course another delay. The benefit right now is she is leaving me alone and she is not harassing my friends either. I'm enjoying the quiet more than the satisfaction of chasing her for money, so I've just let the sleeping dog lie for now. I'm just sick of spending money on a lawyer just to deal with a judge who simply won't do his job. I've actually been seeing a woman recently. She is recently divorced after a 23-year marriage. I enjoy her company and she thinks my strange sense of humor is funny. She is quiet and introverted, quite the opposite of Crazy Girl. She has 3 sons, all adults now. Neither of us are in a rush for a full-blown relationship, so we will see how it goes. Half a year later, after a few months of dating, I'm back to being single again. We broke up a couple of days ago. I had a feeling from the start it wouldn't last long-term given how short a time it was after her divorce. We did enjoy each other's company. We didn't have any disagreements or fights. Think it just ran its course more than anything. While I'm disappointed it's ended, it wasn't really moving forward either. It seemed weird to me that from a relationship standpoint, every time she would make a noticeable step it would always be followed by a pullback. She is very introverted and has a few close friends. I've met her friends and all remarked how happy and content she seemed to be after we started dating. Even her sons made that comment. Crazy X has pretty much been non-existent. About 3 months ago she was bugging a friend of mine out of the blue, and last month she was covering a different area for someone on vacation, which happens to be the territory for my distribution center that I own. I was suddenly hearing Crazy Girl stories from a bunch of store managers who had never had the pleasure of meeting her before. You'd think after all this time she would just give up trying to create the drama. She is truly clueless in how crazy she makes herself look. Well, at least she isn't bothering me directly. Other than that, not much going on in my world. A year later, so, I'm within a couple of days of the 5-year anniversary of D-Day, and I can't believe how much time has passed and was thinking about that last night. Then today out of the blue I almost ran into her at a store. I haven't seen her since our final court hearing a couple years ago. I'm not sure if she saw me or not. I saw her and heard her voice talking to someone in the aisle, and I turned around and headed out. It really caught me off guard and admit it triggered me all day after that. It shouldn't have bugged me as much as it did, but it did. I spent half the day wondering if she saw me and half wondering when the SWAT team would show up at the house. People I know have occasionally run into her and they have said the crazy train in her head has never slowed down. Other than that, life has been going okay. I sold my business a couple months ago and bought a new one much close to home. I made a good return on my investment selling, and the new one makes more money, so I'm happy about that. A couple more payments and I'll even have the lawyer paid off, and even happier about that. Nothing new on the dating front. Haven't been looking very hard either. I'm just not that interested in getting into another relationship right now. The advantages of single life are still outweighing the advantages of relationship life, I guess. Other than that, not much going on in my little corner of the world. In many ways, even after 5 years, some things still feel like yesterday and others feel like a lifetime ago. The road had many twists and turns, and once in a while you get stuck in one of those stupid roundabouts and drive in circles. The longest lasting is the overall financial devastation. I still remember the conversation I had with her shortly before the meltdown, where I thought we could retire in 10 years. Now 5+ years later, I'm looking at 5 more years just to get back to the position I was 5 years ago. The joys of no-fault amicable divorce. Last week I heard that her OM got himself another crazy one and is in the center of yet another divorce. This makes 8 that I know of now. 2 more, and the State Bar Association should give him a free gift for all the business he helps create for lawyers. Half a year later. Well, I knew things were too quiet. She is dragging me back to court chasing silliness. I got served a couple hours ago. They just never go away. Back alimony apparently. Claims I hid stuff from the court, so even though the open hold period has lapsed it shouldn't matter. Our final date is also now suddenly different on the paperwork I got too. We got divorced in month of October 15th, yet Team Crazy is claiming it wasn't final till January. I got my copy in January, but you're divorced when the judge says you're divorced. Not when some clerk gets around to mailing it months later. I don't get it. Nothing got done at the end and she still owes me money from the final order. I gave up chasing that long ago and now stir up the hornet's nest. Surely the nut job realizes this, and her lawyer can't be this stupid to think he can cherry pick something to chase without opening up the whole can of worms. It frankly took the wind out of my sails tonight. I just can't believe this freak show is going to start up again after all these years. I almost had the lawyer paid off from the last round. Why can't she just stay in her little delusional world and leave me alone? Tonight, I just don't feel up for the looming battle, especially when there is nothing for her to win. Met with lawyer yesterday. First thing he says to me is, I really do like you, OP, think you're a great guy, but I never wanted to see you again. Then he points to a pile of boxes in his office, says, that's part of your file. I never bothered to have it put away because I just knew someday you'd be back. I gave him the paperwork I was served. He alternated between laughing and staring in disbelief. He agreed nothing in the affidavit she gave to get this opened up again was factual. Dates were wrong. He asked me if she ever paid me that he didn't know about. That was a big no. Then he says, what kind of an idiot lawyer opens up this can of worms without checking these kinds of facts out? I gave him my business records, tax returns for last 3 years. He reviewed them quickly and pretty much decided to go scorched earth to get this shut down quickly. He knows this attorney a little bit and figures once he finds out some of the sordid details like her not paying me, he will bail. He's too young to retire like her last lawyer. Even under the best of scenario, he saw no winning angle here for her. Update. Met with lawyer to go over all the discovery nonsense Team Crazy wanted. My lawyer decided to flood them with paper. Had 2 options. Give them year-end summaries which had all the needed detail, or send weekly settlements from my main supplier which are long, complicated and hard to read. So instead of 6 pages of financial data, Team Crazy got over 5,000 pages of mostly useless data they can go through and try to figure out. That ought to run up Crazy Girl's bill. Court hearing is Monday. I got a phone conference with mine tomorrow since Team Crazy finally broke radio silence this week. The letter they sent was nonsense, rambling about how she works 3 jobs. I only work 1. Idiot statements like you only buy a business expecting to make way more money than you previously did, so I must be making boatloads of cash that I'm hiding. And never one to pass on the oldies but goodies. Team Crazy is back on the I'm selling her videos on internet, and I'm not disclosing that cash either. I haven't seen the numbers, but apparently working 3 jobs she still makes way less than me. Whatever. This lawyer I don't think ever read our final decree that clearly states that the number to be used is the greater of current earning or imputed earnings from the job she got fired from. I don't care if she works 3 jobs. Funny, when happily married she didn't have to work at all. Am I supposed to care? Few months later. I was supposed to have court tomorrow, and like clockwork Team Crazy sent a letter yesterday with a silly proposal which didn't even address why we are going to court to begin with. This of course comes with the now standard delay in court proceedings, so now the case of the century is kicked out to the end of January. It's been radio silence between the lawyers up to this letter. Thankfully my lawyer bill hasn't been anywhere near what the last round was. My lawyer isn't doing much by his own admission, and I'm not disagreeing with the approach in the grand scheme of things. Like when they wanted all the financial record junk, okay, here's a big pile of paper. Have fun sorting and figuring it out. If she wants to tell grand fairy tales and run up a bill with her lawyer, that's her problem. Her lawyer must have finally figured out she owes me money, which was the reason he broke silence. Mine wanted to just go to court and announce to the judge Crazy X owes X amount to my client. The case has no merit. Why are we here today? Her lawyer sent some half-baked stipulated proposal which would get her out of the money she owes me if I agreed, which to me was a Hail Mary shot on his part. My lawyer responded with a simple no. It's been delayed a couple more times, twice by blizzards here and once by her lawyer. We were supposed to have a hearing a couple weeks ago but got yet another stupid letter from Team Crazy. My lawyer's patience had run out at that point, and he filed contempt charges against her, and it was to be heard at the same time this alimony nonsense case was to be heard. My lawyer fought the last delay, but of course the judge granted it, and it's now the end of May. The Crazy X is now causing issues at work. That appears to be her latest game. I managed to avoid her for the last few years. Now over the last month or so she's showing up accidentally at several of the accounts I service in my territory. It's becoming more frequent. She does merchandise work for a company and has for several years, so she has every right to be at the stores working, but I find it quite odd we've never run into each other in all this time. Now suddenly every time I turn around there she is. We never talk, of course. Usually the moment I see her I turn around and leave. This last week I completely redid my route to change the times I was arriving, so we'll see how long that lasts before she starts popping up again. She apparently doesn't have much work to do at these locations and has plenty of time to try and talk to everyone who works there, bad-mouthing and telling tales of my evil ways. None of that bothers me, and these locations all thought she was nuts to begin with, and now they just make jokes about her wacky ways. Ironically, she wants and embraces the victim role, yet I'm the guy getting sympathy. I can't tell you how many people have said, "You poor man, how could you have ever been married to her?" So now that my boring little life has become theater again, these people are telling me all sorts of crazy girl stories in the recent weeks. She apparently will date anyone with a pulse and blown through dozens of guys over last couple years, and she's really scraped the bottom of the barrel in an attempt to find someone to pay the bills. I even had one woman approach me in Walmart whom I'd never seen before. No idea who she was. Proceed to walk up to me and tell me she was her now former best friend and proceed to rail and badmouth crazy to no end. Apparently, she was trying to steal her boyfriend along with some other things. All I kept thinking is, who are you and why are you telling me crap? They ought to have like a witness protection plan when you divorce crazy. Major update. The dimwit commissioner made his ruling yesterday and it's beyond comprehension how bad it is. Not only has he completely disregarded anything in our original decree, he decided to use my last W-2 from over 5 years ago and used hers also when she was working 15 hours a week after she was fired. I have zero ability to pay what he ordered. In his ruling, if you can call this bad joke, that he decided that it wasn't fair her old employer fired her before she was found either innocent or guilty in court. It wasn't fair she got fired for committing stupid things, and it wasn't fair the main account she serviced barred her with a no trespass order because they didn't wait till a court proved her guilty. It's also not fair that I chose to buy this business and make less money knowing my poor lovely ex would struggle and I should have worked harder to find a better paying job, so he is penalizing me and imputing a salary as if I was still working that job despite the reality. From my rough calculations, once I pay the nut job, she will make 4 times the income I make. I can't even live on what he is allowing me to keep, and I can't even cover my rent, let alone food. He also in his infinite wisdom put no time limit on this and wrote the order up. It ends when either of us she gets remarried. Because this wasn't good enough, the Joker added extra alimony amount until I pay back what I should have been paying her for the last several years had I found a proper paying job. This truly is the nightmare that never ends. The appeal has already been filed. I'm so happy I live in a fair and impartial no-fault state. Nothing she does is bad and the court excuses her behavior left and right. She gets caught in lies, they make excuses. She wants more, they tell me to work harder. My comment: sometimes there's bad ending to these stories. You got to be careful of who you meet. This is a reminder for man or woman out there. You need to know your partner really well before you marry them. Sub and bell and we will keep learning from these relationships.